You're watching Fox 17 News, Nashville in Focus.
Happy Sunday morning, everybody. I'm Scott Couch, your host. We are talking politics for the next 30 minutes. I've got two Democrats, two Republicans commenting on the issues of the day. Hopefully, you'll leave here saying, I didn't know that. I feel a little better informed. Let me introduce our guests and we'll wade in. Jasper Hendricks, Democratic strategist, current chairman of the Metro Fair Board with us. Trace Whittam back with us, former U.S. Senate candidate and former Tennessee Senate aide. Dakota Galban, who is the chair of the Davidson County Democratic Party. And with us for the first time, right across the hall, the tallest man in this group at 6'7", Jason Weekly, who is the chairman of the Davidson County Republican Party. Delighted to have you with us. Tell us a little bit about yourself, because you just were elected earlier this year.
Yeah, well, I was the vice chair for a brief period and regional chair before that, but I work in IT and have lived in Nashville for about half my life.
That's great. We're glad to have you on the show for the first time. Hopefully they'll get you back if you have a good time. Guys, let's wade in. The big, topic this week, that the legislature obviously, has adjourned, and right after that, the trial of former State House Speaker Glenn Cassida got underway in federal court. There was testimony going on all the way through Friday. Of course, they'll pick it up. He, along with his former Chief of Staff, Cade Cothran, are charged with bribery, money laundering, conspiracy. They face up to 20 years in prison if they get convicted. Defense is being led by Ed Yarbrough, a former U.S. attorney, very well-known Nashville attorney. If you get in trouble, he's a good guy to call. He raised, a question with jurors, which maybe gave a little bit of glimpse into what the defense is going to be, and that was, have you ever received a commission for, having sold something, as if, that's what was really happening? You're a Democrat, so I'll give you the first bite at the apple since you have an opportunity to throw rocks at the Republicans.
Oh boy,
here.
Yeah, we're just sitting back eating our popcorn
Sure
on
you
this
are.
one, watching the other side sort of with infighting. But, the legislative session had to end early because so many of the members were implicated in this trial. They're testifying. The current speaker is going to be called as a witness in this case. So there's going to be a lot of stuff that comes out during this trial. Former Rep. Quesada, he's going to claim it's a witch hunt and there's no case there, but the federal government does not bring a case against you unless they're very sure that you're guilty of something.
Well, now you raise a question, Trace. I'll ask you, since we're on that side of the table. Is President Trump going to, offer a pardon here like he did, with the case over in East
One might
Tennessee?
believe, President Trump has been pardoning all political hunts, I guess we'll call them at this time, all political mishaps, trying to keep everything really cut and dry. This happened several years ago. Obviously, it's a sore subject. It shouldn't have happened. Of course,
all these players.
I know these people. I'm sorry to hear that some of the people have found themselves in situations that they're in. The Republican Party certainly does not want to be in anything like this. A lot of times, that's why we change leadership. Of course, leadership now has been called into this because a lot of times it's the same people that circle the wagon, just get elected next. So nonetheless, I think they're ready to move on from this. I think Cassida says he's not guilty. You're not guilty until you're proven guilty. And so I
supposedly
think
rejected a plea agreement.
Rejected plea. So that's somebody that says, listen, I'm not guilty, okay? And so, listen, I think we got to give Cassida his day in court and assume that he what he knew about was up on the up, and let the courts play out.
One of the things they said, Jasper, and I know you've been following this, I think Cassida said there was only a couple $1,000s here we're talking about, not some huge sum of money. I'm not sure the amount matters.
You're right. The amount does not matter. A crime is a crime. I do not know what the rules were then, but I do know what the rules are now. And so for me, for example, because I do work there full time, if I am getting paid for political work, I have to disclose it. If I don't disclose it, then I'm violating the law. And so
and if you did disclose it, it would have told everybody what's going on.
It would tell everyone what's going on. Now, the problem that we have here is that this was a company that was created. They created a person. They created a company, in order to, make money. And whether or not the work was done, I think the issue that they may have is that it was a fake person and a fake company.
If what you're doing is legitimate,
if you were doing what was legitimate, all you had to do was file it. All you had to do was just file that you were the owner of this company, and I think that we wouldn't have any issues.
But Cade Cothran, who was, I guess, the person that made up the fake name, had been discredited because of a text message scandal, and he was really too hot to do business with. So Republican lawmakers wouldn't have done business with him because it, would have caused them trouble.
They would have done business with him.
Oh, you think so?
They elected a guy with 34 felonies. I mean, gosh, they wouldn't mean to tell me that they wouldn't have. I mean, really? I
won't argue with you.
It's just. But I think that again, it goes back to you created a fake company. You were submitting paperwork, under this alias, and it's like, when you sign the papers, it's saying that you're submitting this information, that is honest and accurate, and if not, you can be charged.
So you think you're going to be convicted?
Yes.
Yes, I've got less than a minute. We're not in a rush. We can pick it up on the other side, but please, I'll at least get you started.
Well, this predates me. I wasn't really paying attention to Casada that closely when it was going on. I, of course, heard about it when the news broke. But,
of course.
I mean, this is a chance for the legal system to work. I think, third branch of government, let it do its job and work its way through the court. So.
Well,
we'll see what happens.
As fate would have it, perfect timing for our break. We're going to end that topic, but we've got a lot more to cover here. You're watching Nashville in Focus on Fox 17, and we will be right back.
You're watching Fox 17 News, Nashville in Focus.
The state legislature called it a day a couple of days ago last week, and they did so without finishing some business that was controversial from the jump. One of those bills was one that would have required school districts around Tennessee to verify the citizenship of all of the students, and it seemed like that one was really rolling toward passage. The Senate passed it. It stalled in the House. The question is it dead, or will it be back in January? And Jason, we'll start on this side this time. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, but it was very controversial.
I think it'll be back. Our public schools are in really bad shape, and we've got to focus on spending the resources appropriately. I mean, we spend about $17,000 per pupil in Davidson County, which is the tuition for TSU. So I think it'll be back. It'll help alleviate some of the problems. We have a lot of Kurdish, Cuban, we've got a lot of Southeast Asian communities here. Those people came here legally. Their kids are in our schools. A lot of them have learned English, but we shouldn't be taking care of people that aren't actually citizens of the country. I mean,
now, I will say that this failed, I think, because there were some Republicans, some in leadership, both in the House and the Senate, who came out against this thing.
Well, I mean, it failed because it was stupid. It was dumb. It shouldn't have even been brought up.
You know what I mean, though? Republicans had the numbers.
But it was against the law. It's already against the law.
It's paying for students
It's already against the law. But we don't even. But nobody's even said how much it's actually costing us to educate undocumented students.
Well, truthfully, we don't know.
No one knows. Right? Exactly.
Yeah.
So for the argument to be we're spending this money and we're spending $17,000, we're still at the bottom of the nation, when it comes to funding per pupil, and when you say, we got to make sure we're spending it appropriately. Well, you're not fully funding education to begin with. You're not giving the people what they're asking for. You're not giving the people what they're asking for. You're not giving the people what they're asking for. And what you're saying is, here's what we're going to give you, and you do what, and make it happen.
Well, you made reference to it's not legal, and Trace, it was my understanding that one of the end games was to get this issue. You have to have it on the table, and then somebody can sue, and they wanted to have the Supreme Court take it up.
Yeah, well, and I'll say this. I'll say, as far as the sponsors, where this bill basically originated from was out of Hamilton County. Again, looking at our parties.
That's your neck of the woods.
Yes, yeah. Republican primary voters, Hamilton County, very red county. They're done with it. They're done with the illegal immigration. They've had illegal immigrants that have been dropped in their neighborhoods in the middle of the night from the Biden administration.
That is not an illegal immigrant.
I think they're not passing through.
No, they're not passing through because we couldn't find them. They left, remember? I mean, even one of the children were molested. So we do know that illegals have come to this state and then they get lost and then they wind up in our schools. So again, you want to have a heart because no one wants to take it out on the children. But the issue is financial.
That's
and so
what Farrell Hale and some others said.
I was gonna say, the
feel
issue
I'm-
came out of
I'm causing
finance.
the children to pay for the sins of the father, which is not biblical.
Well, that's why Senate Finance Chairman Bo Watson was the one that brought the bill, because
Yes.
here's the guy that's saying,
He
look,
cannot say how
here's the
much.
deal.
He cannot say how much.
But you're still
he did
allocating money
not
to
give- you don't
the
know
new
that.
school
I remember
program.
the hearing where they
You don't
asked
know
him.
that.
There's only one
If
way
you
to
can't give
measure
me a number, you don't know.
And I would say it would come back simply because next year is an election, and this is an election topic.
So
and
you think it'll
I
be
think
back?
strategically they may have said, let's set it, let's argue about this all
you
summer.
think it might have been part
and
of the
then
plan.
next year, look, it's teed up for a field goal. Let's field goal the thing next year, right? So let's argue about it. Let's get it right. Let's measure it. Look, Bo Watson is strategic. Okay, he's counting the dollars of the state, and they're going to get education right. And so this is going to come back strategically.
If he was really strategic, he would be focusing on the federal government employees that have lost their jobs and trying to get them to fill the
That's
state
not his
government
job.
jobs
He's the
that's
state
available.
job.
That's-
No,
no,
there's
no,
one number
because
that we do know.
but his
guys.
rationale is that it is against his philosophical beliefs to pay people enough to be able to come and work for the state government.
Well,
I need to give Dakota a chance, but
boy.
one number we do know is that we're spending $300 million in, I guess, 2023 on ESL.
Sure.
We know that.
And so obviously there's a lot of anti-immigration rhetoric happening right now with
I've heard some.
with our federal government, and so a lot of the times things just come down. Stephen Miller repeats something on Fox News enough times, and the state legislature picks it up. But this is just a very cruel and unnecessary policy that nobody asked for. There were 90+ principals in Hamilton County that said we do not need this law, we don't want this law. So, Lambert said he would bring it up again next year, but I really think with the way that things are going in this country, immigration is not going to be something that Republicans have the benefit of the doubt on much longer.
It's going to be
And if you're
interesting.
saying that he's spending $300 million, those are those Kurdish people, those people that you're saying have come here.
That came
Now,
from
you're
that
saying
same
that you're
hearing.
saying that miraculously they learn how to speak English. How do you think they learn how to speak English? And so, and that's the problem, and that's the point I have. We have people
Well, I think a lot of them
who
probably
work
speak
at our
English
state
a lot of
government.
different ways. Their everyday interactions.
That's the
or
money that you guys are
some of the
talking about. What
schools
you're
that they
saying is
show
going
up
to undocumented.
But we're not saying they're illegal.
That's unfounded.
We're saying there are
But it's
illegals,
unfounded.
but we haven't said that community specifically.
There
So-
was a quote from I guess in that hearing, Bo Watson was asked, hey, how many people are we talking about? What are we spending? He said, we really don't know. But there was, I guess, an article in whatever the newspaper is in Chattanooga. You tell me.
It's the Chattanooga Times Free Press.
Okay, well, they had estimated that there were about 10,000 in the state. So they came up with some number, I don't remember, 13, 14, 17, 30 million, whatever it was. But that was just a guesstimate. And even Bo Watson said, we think that number is low, but we don't know.
Now remember, this is the federal delegation's problem. Okay, this is the congressmen and the federal U.S.
Exactly.
senators, which I'll tell you have done nothing. Okay, remember I ran for the U.S. Senate.
I
Still,
remember.
they did nothing on that. They still do nothing. So it comes down to people like the state because the primary voters are demanding that the state do something because these do-nothings in
No,
Washington
they're not.
do nothing.
They're not demanding. They're not
That's why
demanding.
we don't know anything.
On that note, I'm going to have to slam the door because we've got to get a commercial break in, but we've got a lot more to talk about, including setting the table for property reappraisals in Nashville, what it will mean for property tax rates. We'll be right back.
You're watching Fox 17 News, Nashville in Focus.
The numbers say that property values in Nashville are going up by an average of 45%. Some higher, some lower. I know somebody's only going up by 12%. I know somebody else who's went up 72%. But new assessments are going out right now. When those bills come out, when the values are higher, obviously that would mean your tax bill is going to be higher if the tax rate stays where it is. However, a couple days ago on Fox 17 News, we were the first to report that the mayor's office, Mayor Freddie O'Connell, is going to recommend to Metro Council to adopt a lower number. And Trace, we'll start over here. You live in Davidson County. Right now it's $2.92 per $100 of assessed value. The question is, even if we lower it 20, 30 cents, which I heard it could be as high as 30 cents, will that give Metro enough money not to have to, raise property taxes?
Metro's doing pretty good with their revenues. I mean, there's lots of different ways for Metro to get revenues. I have to say, hats off to the mayor trying to take less money. I think that's very noble. It's certainly something you'd like to see in the right direction. I don't think there's going to be revenue shortfalls for them to have to put other taxes in place. And here's the thing.
Doesn't seem like it now.
And here's the thing. One thing I will give the mayor credit on is step out. Here's the thing. If it doesn't work, we're going to hit you for taxing us later, for bringing the taxes up. So, try it that way. If it doesn't work, you can always discuss later. But I don't think anybody's going to be against you finding ways to not collect as much.
If as I understand the numbers, if this happens the way it's been described to me that it's going to be proposed, it'd be the lowest tax rate Nashville's ever had.
It will, and I think it has to do with the due diligence of our assessor's office, and I think she's trying to get this right and making sure that people. The process has been fair, and that I think once we see the appeal process works out, and we'll see the council will have a better understanding, and gauge the numbers. I really think that the mayor will do the right job and make sure that the right thing, and make sure that people aren't hit over it, because everything is going to go up. Things
it's
are going to go up.
It's great when you sell your house. It's like it's now worth $1 million, and it used to be worth half that.
Right, but we're collecting taxes, like
Sure.
Trey said, from a lot of other things, and over the last couple of years, we created a few other ways to generate taxces.
Yeah, got the new transit fund.
You got the transit fund, but then the whole the East Bank development area, that authority area is not just the East Bank, but it goes, it extends further into the city. And so then you got the liquor by the drink tax. You got all the stuff that's that we're collecting as a city. That
a lot of times our guests are helping to pay.
Right.
Now you live in Davidson County. What are your thoughts on where the tax rate is and what is happening?
Honestly, the tax rate isn't the issue. It's how much whole dollars you pay when you pay those taxes. So even if your house went up, say 50%, which is the average they're saying, if the tax rate goes down by a penny on the dollar, you still might wind up paying a few $100s more per year.
No, so true.
So, the issue to me is it's a regressive tax. This is
the property
this
tax?
hurts people. Yeah, this hurts people who make less money. If you're on a fixed income, if you're 35 with 2 kids, are you going to cut diapers and formula? Like, what are you going to do with that budget adjustment that you have to make in your home?
It's always hard, and that's where the rubber meets the road, individuals.
Yeah. I trust the mayor to make the right decision on this.
Wow.
I think it'll take the wind out of the sails of the protesters who plan to protest his State of Metro address in the coming days. But Nashville is growing, and so with growth, you have more people, and you have a demand for more services. So it'll be interesting to see how all that plays out with the budget.
State of Metro, by the way, is this coming Thursday, and we'll be covering it, of course. Another break. We'll be right back. You're watching Nashville in Focus. What's the name of the show?
You're watching Fox 17 News, Nashville in Focus.
Our final segment will deal with the regulation of high school sports in our state. The TSSAA, which is the governing body for high school sports, adopted a new rule that said if Dakota's playing, tennis somewhere and he wants to move from this school to that school, he can do it one time without having to sit out a year, which has been very controversial. State lawmakers say, okay, I'm glad you did that, but I want to make this law so you can't change the policy. And some people are suggesting that the TSSAA needs to be regulated by the state. Your thoughts, sir?
The state wants to regulate everything. They want to take over Memphis public schools. They want to regulate women's health. They want to regulate the Nashville airport. They want everything. They want their hands in everything. So this is, just another agency that they feel that they should have some more control over. I think if these folks are at TSAA, they've been studying it, they've been working it, they're professionals, they're looking at trends, and I think that they would know what will be best. But again, we have a bunch of part-time legislators that think that they know better.
What are your thoughts? And the TSSAA has been around for a long time, but it's kind of like the NCAA. Who's watching them?
Yeah, I think we agree. My general response to should the government is no. Just stay out of it. It's not really any of their business. So.
Now that's contrary to what we've been seeing from our Republican leadership
let
on
me
the Hill.
just get
Go
back,
ahead, Trace.
Let me
Take
just
a
get
bite.
back with Jasper. One, the reason why they're interfering with Memphis schools is because Memphis schools are failing, right? They need help. Two, when you say
because of the state legislature.
when you say women's health, you talk about guidance counselors in high schools that tell little boys they should be girls. So need some more help there.
I'm talking about a woman being
you
able
also
to
talk about when it comes to
decide her
sports,
own health
men
choices.
playing in women's sports. So need some help there. So that's why this is on the table, right? Let's be real, because Democrats naturally can't do anything correct. So no, we don't want government in a lot of things, but sometimes it gets so crazy we have to. I think with this, just really what this comes down to is, as we see new ways of education developing, such as the Education Freedom Act, where scholarships, you're going to start having private high schools, if you will. And I've said this from the start very, very quickly. I'll sum it up by saying, imagine you have a high school, K through 12 school that focuses on little Johnny we'll put him in the SEC football. And so it's basically a training camp for football, K through 12. Well, all of a sudden there's a kid that goes to one of the local metro high schools, and specialized school starts recruiting him, and there's things in it for him, just like they do in college. So I think eventually you're going to have rules, because there's probably going to be money involved. There will probably be incentives involved. It'll probably
you
get
think
legal.
that'll come down to the high school
It
level?
always does. Always comes down to money, because what do we argue about in schools and education? Money. So it's always going to be money, and so you're going to have to. It's going to get legal, and so of course the state's going to have to make sure everything's done fair, because gambling could come involved in it. I mean, where does it start and stop? So these are things that. Yeah, the state legislature is going to have to look at.
Got to let Dakota weigh in.
Boy.
Should state lawmakers be involved in that, or should they just stay out of it?
No. So we live in a nanny state. The state of Tennessee is essentially a nanny state. They've ruined public education, and now they want to ruin public high school sports. So I think the representative who's sponsoring this needs to take a step back. His kids go to private school, but he thinks he can tell public school kids what to do and what not to do.
Well, this is among the bills that they did not pass, but they said we want to revisit it. So we're going to, I'm trying to think.
Again, election year next year.
There were a lot of messaging bills that did not get passed this year because they want them to go next year so that they can try to have something to run on. Because
this one did pass the House,
this was
though,
just
did it not?
Ineffective.
I think this one passed the House.
Yes, it did.
It didn't pass the Senate.
It laid the Senate, right. And you saw quite a few, not quite a few, but a couple of bills that just couldn't make it through conference because, one was just so outrageous. One version was so outrageous. You had one that had a little bit of sense, and they just couldn't agree.
We're going to have to slam the door there. Thank you guys for being with us. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next week on In Focus.